cheating has always been a cat and mouse game. Except back in the day, it would be way simpler. Nowadays, cheating is everywhere. You see it in majors. Regular games.
The fuck?
However, those are bad examples of cheaters getting caught, and there are only a few. But you should know that at the top of the pyramid, there are thousands of cheaters who are not banned, probably reaching in the tens of thousands. Now, as I said in the past, it would be way simpler. A player would decide to cheat, the anti-cheat would catch on to it, and the player's account would be banned. And that would be pretty much it. Nowadays, anti-cheats are far more severe. And those greedy developers are so confident that they have made a public statement saying that if anyone manages to cheat in their games, they would be rewarded money. But of course, cheaters found a way around it, thanks to HWID Spoofers. But before we see how we got here, let's go a bit back in time. Cheaters would no longer care what would they do if they got banned. They would obviously just make new accounts. Game developers noticed the increasing number in cheaters and that banning their accounts was not of much help. So what they've done is that they turned this from a cat and mouse game to an entire war. So multiple game companies like Valve and BattleEye have introduced the HWID information banning system, locking cheaters out for good and thinking that the only way they could get back in is by buying an entire new computer. Or that's what they believed would happen. And yes, at first they were right. Most cheat developers gave up. They could not come up with a solution to unban their cheaters. But one of them stood apart. They didn't have a name, but yet they have one today. They created a tool which allowed users to fake their hardware information, and by doing so they would avoid bans. And so they named it the HWID Spoofer, made by Impact Services. It is year 2009, and by now it has been 1 year since the initial release of the software. And you might think, oh, everyone heard about it by now, sure they are rich. Well, it is not the case. The spoofer is still a well-kept secret and nobody knows about it. But it is around this time they are starting to expand, offering the tool to only certain people for generous amounts of money. Now, with the times being different back then, and with nobody expecting it, the worst that could happen happened. The HWID Spoofer was leaked. The leaked code for the spoofer became a blueprint for future developers of similar tools, spreading like wildfire across forums. And 95% of current day spoofers, if not 100%, have lines of codes that belonged to Impact Services once in 2008. Keep in mind that was 17 years ago. Now you might ask, what did Impact do afterwards? For 2 or 3 years they went completely dark. People would still take advantage of their leaked code, creating spoofers and selling them. The only catch was when something would get patched, they would really struggle to fix it since the code did not belong to them. And now you might ask, why did everyone try and copy their code rather than make their own spoofer? Well, to answer this question, keep in mind this was something revolutionary back then and simply lacked the knowledge. Not to mention the anti-cheats were getting better and better. But then comes the twist. Impact Services did not disappear. They quietly stayed in the game as they did until now, adapting their tool and keeping a step ahead of the competition that were using their code. Other sellers would make countless attempts to deal with them, but with little success. Impact then felt 1000% ready, and with that, I'm presenting you modern day Impact Services. Along the years, they have evolved so much. niche, adapting to multiple products and not only spoofers. Outstanding every single bit of competition. It is crazy how this hustle worked. And if we'd like to think how is the competition doing, the ones that still use the stolen source code 13 years later, their software is a disaster. Failing to push updates, failing to stick to what it says, and that is why if you are in this line of product, you should be very cautious with what you're doing. Impact Services showed evidence of being humble, professional, and determined. And although it took over a decade, it eventually worked. They wanted to be paid back by their stolen work, and so they have. Now, as I said, you really should be careful with sellers. Most are gonna say they're gonna give you a good spoofer, take your money, and boom, scam, just like that. So if you ever happen to stumble upon a seller of those products, make sure to ask them, how detected is the software? If they say not detected, just remind them they are not Impact Services. Thank you so much. I'm Valex, and I'll see you in the next one.